Alright, today we're going to be proving triangles are congruent by the side-angle-side congruence postulate, also known as the SAS or SAS. So, side-angle-side congruence postulate states that if two sides and the included angle of one triangle is congruent to two sides and the included angle of another triangle, then those triangles are congruent. Okay. Now, please note that we're talking about the included angle. That means that that angle is in between the two sides that are given in those two triangles. Okay, so in my diagram you can see that I have two triangles, okay, and we have markings on two of the sides, and then we also have a marking on one of the angles. But what's really special about this side angle side congruence postulate is that the angle has to be in between the two sides that are marked. The angle cannot be one of these other two because then it won't be wedged in, okay? And that's what included means for us, okay? So if your diagram does not have the angle wedged in between those two sides, then you cannot prove by the side angle side congruence postulate, okay? So I marked these with some highlighters, and because we're proving by the side angle side congruence postulate, then I like to write the SA and the S, okay? S being for the first side, A being for the angle, and then S for that other side, okay? So, as you can see, my first side is named side ED, so I wrote side ED. The angle is angle D. Because we're not sharing angles, I'm going to just call it by its vertex name. And then second side is side DF. Okay. Now we write what corresponds with what here, what matches up. So if I said side ED, and then I went from no marking to the angle marking, then I have to read it the same way here, no marking to the angle marking. So side AB. Okay, those two are congruent to each other. Angle D, very obvious, is congruent to angle B, and I use my angle symbol. And for side DF, I'm going from angle marking to no angle marking, and I have to go angle marking to no angle marking. So angle side DF is congruent to side BC. Therefore, remember these three dots mean therefore, triangle EDF is congruent to triangle ABC by side angle side. Okay. Now, a couple facts that I would like you to remember from our last video. We talked about vertical angles, and we also talked about a shared side. Okay, it is a fact that vertical angles will always be congruent to each other. So this marking is one of those very few markings that are acceptable for you to actually mark on your triangles, because this will always be true. At the same time, if you have two triangles and they are sharing a side, you can also mark that side because that side is congruent to itself by the reflexive property. So these are facts. If your diagrams are not marked and you know that this is a fact, you may mark your diagrams. Okay? Cool. Let's get started. So we're going to now state if the triangles are congruent, and we're going to state how we know. So we're going to take a look at our first example here, and I have names of my vertices. So remember, you can always mark facts in your diagram if it's helpful. And it looks like I do have vertical angles here. So I can mark them congruent because I know that that is a fact, okay? I can't go marking other sides though, okay? If it's not given to you, you can't mark it, because right now they're asking you, can you prove that these two triangles are congruent? And if you can, you need to tell us by what postulate. So let's take a look. It looks like for my first triangle, I have a side marked, I have an angle marked, and I have a side marked. So side, angle, side, SAS. Oh, okay. Now we check to see if the second triangle follows the same pattern. So we have a side, one mark, we have the angle wedged in the middle, and then we have the second side with two marks. And yeah, it looks like, I think these two triangles are congruent. So they are. So let's say, yes, they are, by the side angle side congruence postulate. And let's write down what corresponds with what. So I'm going to start from here, side AC. Angle C is being shared, see? So now I have to call it by its first, middle, and last name on both occasions. So I'm going to say for this angle here, we are going to call it angle ACB. And the second side is side CB. Now we're going to follow the same pattern with our second triangle. I started with the corner A and moved to the marked angle. So for the second triangle, I need to go to the out corner and then work to that marked angle. So this is side DC. So side AC is congruent to side DC. The angle also, I can't call it just angle C because it's being shared. So I'm going to call it by its first, middle, last name. So in this case, it'll be angle DCE. Okay? And then our last side, CB, is congruent to side CE. Therefore, triangle ACB is congruent to triangle DCE by the side angle side congruence postulate. Okay? Not bad, right? Okay. Okay, take a look at this next one. Okay, if you need to pause the video to draw it and then decide whether, based on what is given, can you prove that these two triangles are congruent based on the side angle side congruence postulate? Please do that. Okay, I also see that again I have vertical angles, so I know I can mark that, okay, because that's a fact. But I can't mark it with just one marking because I already have one angle that's marked with one marking. And I have another angle that's marked with two markings. So this one forcefully has to have three markings. And I know that vertical angles are congruent. Now, does this information help me prove that these two triangles are congruent based on the side angle side congruence postulate? Well, let's take a look. Angle, angle, angle. They are giving me no information for sides here. Therefore, these two triangles, we can't say they are congruent by the side angle side, okay? Because that's what we're looking for, okay? All right. Let's try one more of the same type of problem. If you need to pause the video to draw it out or to analyze to decide whether this can be proven by the side angle side congruence postulate, please do so. Okay, in looking at this, I'm going to be reading what I see. I cannot make any extra markings because these two triangles are not sharing sides and they're not sharing angles like vertical angles. So I see a side marked, an angle marked, and another side marked. Side, angle, side. Now I take a look at the second triangle and see if it matches. So it's got two markings, angle, three markings, side, angle, side. So yeah, I think we can prove this one by the side angle side congruence postulate. So let's build our proof. What matches up with what? Okay, so it's for the first one, I'm starting from the one that has two markings, going to the angle, and then going to the one that has three markings. So side RP, angle P, and side PQ. Now we just need to see what is congruent to each piece. So if I started with no marking to one marking, I'm going to go on the one that has two, no marking to one marking. So this is side US, this is angle S, and this is side ST. Therefore, triangle RPQ is congruent to triangle UST by side angle side. Nice work, guys. All right. So now, for these last two problems, all we have to do is state what additional information is required in order to know that these triangles are congruent by the side-angle-side congruence postulate. So this is the type of problem where you decide what information is missing that we would have to draw in order for us to then say, yes, they are congruent by side-angle-side, okay? So far, if I look at the first triangle, it looks like this bottom side has one marking, then this angle is marked. So the question is, well, which side do we have to mark in order for it to be side-angle-side? So pause the video, see if you can think of the answer, and when you're ready, unpause it. Okay, so if you said we had to mark the side that has TS, you are correct, because now it'll be side, angle, side. Now we have to decide which side corresponds to side TS in that second triangle. And if I go in order again, this has one marking, side. Here's my angle. That means we're going to have to mark this bottom side here. Perfect. So now we have to make the statement. Well, what do we need? Well, I know we went from U to T, and then we went from T to S. So side TS has to be congruent to, let's see, that's JI, and now it is IH, to side IH. This is the information we need in order for us to say, yes, these two triangles are congruent by the side-angle-side congruence postulate. Okay? All right, so let's take a look at our last one. I want you to prove this by the side-angle-side. What information do we need? What information is a fact that you can mark immediately because you know it's always going to be true? Pause the video, work it out, and when you're ready, go ahead and unpause so that you can check with me. All right, we know that vertical angles are congruent, so this is a fact. We know that exists, okay? What other piece of information would we need to make it so that we can prove it by the side-angle-side congruence postulate? So it looks like I have a side marked. I know now this angle has to be marked because it's a fact that they're congruent. What else is missing? That's right. We're missing this piece here. And I can either put one mark or 3 marks. It's up to you. It doesn't matter. So we go to the second triangle and we do the same thing. Here's a side. Here's the angle. Now we have to have this side as well. So now we need to state that information that we need. Now, again, we don't need the angle because we know that's a fact, but we do need these two sides. So if I'm going from I to W to K, that means side WK has to be congruent to, now we read it in the same direction, X, W, V. That means we need side WV. All right. Well, I hope that gave you a better understanding on how to prove two triangles are congruent by the side-angle-side congruence postulate. Until next time.